Good morning and welcome to Bible Truth for Kids. Today our story is called Jesus at the Feast of Tabernacles. But before I tell you that story, I just want to ask you how you feel when people try to boss you around, try to order you around. Do you feel like this? When your brothers or your sisters try to tell you what to do, maybe even your friends. Nobody likes to be ordered around. And we are going to find out today that Jesus' brothers are going to try to tell Jesus what to do. And we're going to see how Jesus responds to that. Well, after Jesus had taught about the bread of life that was up here in Galilee, he stayed up here. He stayed up here for about 6 months. He didn't go down here into Judea, because down there, those religious leaders, those Pharisees, they were on the warpath. They were really trying to hunt Jesus down, looking for an opportunity to arrest him and to kill him. Jesus stayed up in Galilee. He had a lot to teach his disciples, and he still had work to do up in that area. He did a lot of healing, a lot of teaching. But it was getting near to the time of the Feast of Tabernacles, and everybody went to the Feast of Tabernacles from all over Israel. Now, the Feast of Tabernacles was a celebration of the grape harvest and the oil harvest. It was a celebration of God's goodness, of how he had looked after them when they had been wandering in the wilderness before they got to the promised land. So to honor God for his care for them, what they did, if you were in the country, you built a booth or a shelter like this. It was just made out of like light branches and palm trees, and then you lived in that for the duration of the festival, for a whole week. Well, if you're in the city, you made a booth too, but a little different kind of one. You made one in your courtyard, or you could make it on the roof of your house because the roofs were flat, and you lived in that for the whole week. You can see he's blowing a horn in celebration. It was a great time of celebration. People came from all over. So Jesus' brothers, they came to Jesus and they said, "What are you still doing up here in Galilee? Why haven't you gone down to the feast? I mean, if you want people to believe in you, why don't you go down there and show off all your famous works? It's probably the best opportunity for you to do that." The Bible tells us that Jesus' brothers, even his brothers, didn't believe that he was the Son of God. Not yet, anyways. But Jesus said, "No, the time isn't right. I'm not going." Jesus never did miracles to create a show or a spectacle. He never did it just because somebody thought, well, this is the best opportunity, do it now. Jesus only did what his Father said for him to do. And it was not the right time. So his brothers, they just left. They went down to the festival. But Jesus did go down. When? Well, when the Father told him to. Jesus only ever did what God, his Father, told him to do. Now, those religious leaders, they were looking for Jesus. I mean, everybody comes to the festival, so where is he? They were on the outlook for him because, they're looking for a chance to arrest him. Now, the people, they're a little bit afraid of the religious leaders, and they know that those leaders are looking for Jesus, so they just kind of talk among themselves. What are they talking about? They're talking about Jesus. The people were divided about him. Some said he's a deceiver, and some said, well, I think he's a good man. And other people said, well, I think he might even be the Son of God. I mean, there was so much discussion about it. Well, Jesus did come to the Feast of Tabernacles, but he didn't enter the city publicly, making a big show of himself, saying, I'm here, and I've got some things to show you and do for you. He didn't do that at all. Jesus came in privately, secretly. He came into the city. And about the middle of the feast, Jesus went into the temple courts, and he began to teach. Oh, there he is, the religious leaders said. And Jesus taught with such authority. And they said to themselves, where did Jesus get all this learning from? I mean, and all this knowledge and all this authority. The way he speaks, the people are spellbound. I mean, he's never gone to our religious schools. He grew up in Nazareth. You know, he became a carpenter like his father, Joseph. Like, what gives him this authority? Where does it come from? Well, Jesus told them where his authority came from. He said, I'm not speaking on my own authority. I am speaking the words of the Father, and it's his authority that I'm speaking on. And then he said, why are you seeking to kill me? Well, you know what? The crowd that had been listening, they were an argumentative bunch, and they got very angry when Jesus was talking about where his authority came from. And they shouted out, you've got a demon in you. Who's trying to kill you? Can you just imagine saying something like that to Jesus? Well, Jesus said to them, he said, I healed a man on the Sabbath. He was referring to the time when he healed that man at the pool of Bethesda. He said, you will do a ceremonial cleansing for one body part on the Sabbath, and I heal a man's whole body on the Sabbath, and you're angry with me? Well, you know what? Some of the people in the crowd said, hey, isn't this the man that the religious leaders are looking to kill? I mean, he's right here teaching and preaching out in the open, and they don't do anything. I mean, maybe they think that he is the Christ. Well, yeah, that upset the religious leaders. I mean, you know, they could tell that the people were starting to believe in Jesus. Like, they didn't want that, and they were alarmed. And so they thought, you know, well, we really will. Let's send somebody to arrest him. Now, at the temple, there was some temple guards. They were Levites, and they were sort of acting like a police force, especially during the time of the festivals, because there were so many people there. So they sent them. They said, listen, you go and get him, arrest him, and bring him to us. I mean, they were just fed up. But, you know, there were some other religious leaders still hanging around Jesus. And Jesus said to them, I'm going to be with you for a little longer, and then I'm going to the one who sent me. And where I'm going, you cannot come. And they said to themselves, like, where is he going that we're not going to be able to find him? Like, is he going to the Greeks to teach them or something? Like, what is he talking about? But Jesus was talking about going back to the Father in heaven. But that wasn't going to happen until after Jesus had been crucified and resurrected. But they didn't understand any of that. Well, the last day of the festival, that was the most exciting day of the festival, because what happened? They would take a golden chalice, a golden container cup. They would go down to the pool of Siloam, and they would fill it with water. And they would come back in a long procession back to the temple. The high priest would be leading the procession. And just as they got inside the inner courts, there would be 3 trumpet blasts. And all of the people would shout for joy, because this was one of the most joyous festivals. And then they would recite from the Old Testament. And so Jesus used that opportunity to show an object lesson and an opportunity for people to believe in him. And Jesus got up and he cried out in a loud voice. He said, come to me, you who are thirsty. Come to me, believe in me, and out of your heart will flow rivers of living water. You know, he was talking about the Holy Spirit who would be given after Jesus went back to heaven. You know, the Bible tells us that many people believed in him. They said, this really is the Christ. But still, some people said, I'm not sure. Well, those officers that had been sent to arrest Jesus, they came back and they didn't have Jesus with them. And so, you know, the Pharisee says, why didn't you bring Jesus back to us like we told you to? And they said, well, no one ever spoke like this man. And they said, like, what? Are you deceived too? Now, do you believe that he is the Christ, the Son of God? Do you believe that he is? You know, that is the most important thing that you have to decide, whether Jesus really is the Son of God or not. Now, next week, we are going to see that Jesus says, I am the light of the world. So what does that mean? Does that mean that we will never have to be afraid of the dark again? Well, we'll see next time. See you then.